Is that a baby? Yeah. Yeah. Hello and welcome to Maggie Mumbles. My name is Maggie, and on this channel I mumble about the things that interest me and how they relate to witchcraft, spirituality, and personal development. If any of this sounds interesting to you, please make sure that you give this video a thumbs up, that you are subscribed to this channel, and that you hit the bell for all notifications so that you are notified the next time I post a video. I am working on a series where I am reacting to my own videos from about 5 years ago and reflecting on how my beliefs have changed since then, what stayed the same. I wanted to share these thoughts because I think there is some value in a lot of these videos. I haven't shared them on my YouTube channel before, but I didn't want to share them without reflecting on whether I still believed in those things, especially because I know for a fact there are things that have changed. So you may have seen some of the other videos. I think this is the 6th of this series. It's called the Enwitching Challenge, by the way. We're continuing on with today's video, which is about self-care. Hi everybody. Today we're going to be talking about self-care. So everything we do as magicians or witches or working with energy is all about manipulating the energy around us. You're doing things to bend the energy to your will, and working with this energy, it takes time and it takes energy as well. It can take its toll on your body. So that's why we're talking about self-care, because self-care is how we give ourselves rest. And it is really important when you are participating in rituals and ceremonies and magic that takes a lot of energy. Anytime that burnout is imminent. So everything we do in our lives, we're dealing with energy, processing massive amounts of information. We are discerning fact from fiction. We are sorting through the things that resonate with us and the things that we want to incorporate into our life and dropping what doesn't fit in. This is all very hard and it's demanding and it's grueling. It's work. Doing this stuff is work. And that is why self-care is so important. Self-care is about recovering the energy that you have used. And so today that's what I'm going to be talking about, is some ideas for how you can recover that energy. But it's also about protecting your energy before it leaves you and keeping it close so that you don't lose it and you have more control over that energy field around yourself. So all of the things I'm going to be talking about are just ways to restore your energy, to balance your energy, and to help to bring a sense of normalcy after any of these big magical events or cosmic events or just regular events, emotional events in your life, just mundane things. So I'm going to be giving you the methods that as a witch you might like to use, but again, they are very much rooted in the mundane as well. So here are a few ideas, and some of these actually do touch on the themes of other days in the challenge, so I am going to go through kind of quickly because I'm expanding on some of these ideas a lot more. Either I already have or I will be later on. So if you feel like I'm going really fast, just know that it's gonna come back. There's gonna be more in depth, or I've already covered it in the past. It's actually getting kind of dark, so I don't know if I'm gonna be able to finish this. We'll see how far I get before it gets really dark. The lighting in here is really bad. I have a ring light, but I don't like it. So anyway, if I have an outfit change, that's why. Or if my hair looks flatter, it's because I slept on it. I'm holding my new book, The Kitchen Witch's Guide to Healing and Self-Care, because I wrote in it, obviously, there's a lot about self-care in here, and so I'm not going to read all of it. If you would like a copy of it, then please check the description and you'll be able to find a link to purchase your own copy of this book. But I wanted to share the section of what is self-care. I think I did a good job, but I want to add some more context to this, why it's important. The term self-care was coined in the 1950s, and the concept spread during the 1960s civil rights activism, particularly among members of the Black Panther Party. Self-care for many marginalized communities at the time was the only form of care due to systemic structures that limited access to basic health care. Additionally, activism requires incredible stamina, and many activists would burn out when they pushed themselves beyond their physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual limits. As Audre Lorde said in her book, A Burst of Light, self-care is rooted in self-preservation rather than self-indulgence. From this history, self-care has emerged as a growing trend in holistic healthcare. It is the practice of taking care of yourself on every level. This means creating habits, rituals, and routines that benefit you physically, mentally, spiritually, and emotionally. It means committing to loving yourself and being compassionate towards yourself while being creative in the way you use your time, energy, and resources. Self-care also includes seeking out healthy relationships in which you feel supported and encouraged as you support and encourage your friends and family members. When it comes to self-care, the goal is to learn how to recognize what you need in the various areas of your life and to honor those needs. Self-care is not about following every whim and desire. Doing things that bring you joy in the moment can be part of the overall self-care practice, but true self-care is about seeking long-term health and well-being. That is my updated understanding of what self-care is. And the key to that for me is the long-term health and wellness rather than short-term satisfaction. And like I said in that video, self-care is important to witches and people who work with energy like magic as a way to restore that. Sometimes I talk about self-care in terms of a well or a cup. You are a cup, and if your cup is empty, you can't share anything of the cup because there's nothing in the cup. But if you fill your cup, and you fill your cup through taking care of yourself through self-care practices, you're able to share that with other people. Let's go to the first tip for self-care.
The very first idea is a perfect example of that. Number one is all about grounding and centering. So I've done a live session on grounding and centering in the past. I've written a blog post about it, so I don't want to go too much into what this entails, but basically grounding and centering is how you recycle your energy and keep your energy close. So you do things like using crystals, meditation practices, physically touching the earth, any visualization that you do, practicing intention and affirmation. All of these things can be used to ground and center yourself, to send your energy back into the earth, to recycle it, and to bring it back to yourself.
So as I mentioned, I've talked about grounding a lot, and actually talked about grounding in my other book. Oh, you know what? I'm going to tell you about grounding in this book, Kitchen Witch's Guide to Healing and Self-Care. Each of the chapters in part 2 are taking care of yourself, different areas of your life. So chapter 6 is self-care for the body. And so in that, it's a lot of grounding stuff, which is sort of like pulling yourself into your physical body, grounding yourself to the physical earth. So it's all about physical sensations. Each chapter in the second part of the book has exercise, a tea, and then 3 recipes to cook, because it's kitchen witchcraft. So the exercise in here is the grounding body scan, which if you want to, you can screenshot that and you can have it for free, but you could also buy the book. But there's an exercise for that if you're interested. I feel like kitchen witchcraft is most conducive to grounding because feeling full is a very physical experience. So the recipes are about fullness. So another resource, but I'll also link to my blog post that I wrote about grounding and centering, and I might share a video of how to ground and center. I talk about it in Witchcraft 202. You can find it there as well. And also in this book for centering, there is an exercise in chapter 10, which is about self-care for your energy and your creativity. And so there's an energy centering visualization as well that you can find in here, both grounding and centering. I think I said it in that section, but I just want to repeat it. Grounding is really about recycling energy. So letting go of what you don't want and bringing back in what you do want, what's going to be helpful to you. And centering is about pulling your energy close, because sometimes our energy can be spread too thin, especially if we've overpromised ourselves or overcommitted ourselves to a variety of different things, or even just not overly committing to things, just like doing a lot. So if that's the case, your energy is spread between all of these different activities that you're engaging in. And so centering is just the process of bringing all your energy back to you, especially doing this before doing like a ritual or a spell, because you need to direct that energy towards that spell work. Just to clarify, let's move on to our next self-care tip.
So the next thing that you can do is to cleanse your energy field. So some people think of this as your aura. Again, cleansing can be done in a variety of ways, and it's all about just figuring out what works best for you. But some ideas include crystals, doing an herbal smoke bath with sage or palo santo or cedar or pine, any of these herbs that you can burn, rosemary, making a bunch of smoke and cleansing your body with it, taking a shower or bath, so actually cleansing with water. Walking or hiking in a place where there's a body of water can be really cleansing, but really any natural area in general can be really cleansing to your energy field. So just visiting some natural area of some kind can be really cleansing.
And you're in luck because there's also a cleansing ritual in here. This one's specifically for cleansing your kitchen. It's still self-care. I feel like cleansing your space is an act of self-care. But if you want to cleanse your body, all your energy field, all of those things that I mentioned in the video are useful. I did mention some herbs that I wouldn't recommend now because they are endangered. So Palo Santo is one herb that is endangered. And I said sage, but I want to specify there's so many varieties of sage, and just making sure, and actually with any herb, just making sure that it's not endangered. It's not over harvested, that there's a large quantity of it in the world, and that it can be sustainably harvested and used for your witchcraft practice. One of the best ways to make sure that the herbs that you're using for your witchcraft practice, for cleansing, making herb bundles, is to actually grow it yourself. You can grow rosemary very easily, and that makes a really good cleansing bundle. Peppermint is another one that grows really easily in a pot. Peppermint is very prolific, so it will spread, and lemon bulb's another one that spreads really easily. So making sure you put those in pots so that your yard doesn't overrun with these plants is a good idea, but also it grows so well that you can grow it in a pot, collect what you need, make a bundle, dry out the herbs, and then you'll already have enough for your next bundle, I'm sure. All right, let's move on.
Number 3 is to eat well. So what we put into our bodies really does have a significant impact on our health, and many people don't necessarily see that connection between our magic and what we are fueling ourselves with. Foods that are full of preservatives and additives, these don't nourish our body, and if we're not nourishing our body, we're not nourishing our souls. Just keeping your diet whole and balanced. And I know that in some cases, healthier options can be more pricey. Organic foods are definitely more pricey. And so if you don't have the means to always get organic this or that, that's okay. That's not really what this is about. The point is eating clean. So walking around the outside of the grocery store and avoiding those inner aisles when possible, because all of those food sources on the aisles have a lot of preservatives in them. So if you can, just walk around the outside of the grocery store when you're shopping, and that can really help you to make sure that you're getting healthy, wholesome, balanced diet, and also just to make sure that everything is in moderation. So you don't need to deprive yourself of the joys of life. I know there are some foods that are maybe not the healthiest option, but they really do nourish our soul in some ways. If there's something that you really enjoy, consider it a treat, which we're going to be talking about later, and try to moderate it instead of eating it all the time.
So I liked that I added that at the end about, things that nourish our soul, because I'm going to read this excerpt also from my book. This is chapter 3, Nourish Yourself with Powerful Foods. So what makes a food nourishing will depend on what you need for your physical health, but food can also be nourishing for your mental, emotional, and spiritual health. Some foods may make you feel more connected to another person and can nourish the relationship, and some foods can help you love yourself more. The point is, nourishment is not solely about nutrient density of the food, and it's not the same for each person. As you practice kitchen witchcraft, treat your food like an experiment, and by that I mean pay attention to how it makes you feel to prepare, cook, and eat the food. Consider how that ingredient or meal enhances or diminishes your enjoyment in various areas of your life. So I think that that is more aligned with how I think about food now. At that point in my life, I was a lot more focused on, like I said, very clean eating, not eating unhealthy things. And I do still strive to eat healthy. All of the food that I eat is vegetables because I am vegan, so everything has to be made from plants. There's junk vegan food that I eat. And so for me, it's a lot more about enjoyment and connection with people. So that's changed for me, the way that I relate to food. And I think that's important. Like, for example, I mentioned in that passage, certain food may nourish your relationship with another person. So my husband and I, when we were first dating, we ate so much pizza, ice cream, and beer. It was before we were vegan. And it was like almost every date, that's what we had. And it's not healthy to have those things. But now whenever we have those meals, obviously now we have the vegan version of those things, it just brings us right back to the beginning of our relationship. And that's a really key component in reconnecting with when we fell in love. So that's just an example of how food can create connection with another person. And it may not be the healthiest food, but it's healthy in a different way. It's nourishing in a different way. And that's the way that I think about food now. So let's move on to the next one.
So number 4 is to stay hydrated, mostly with water. So drinking a lot of water. I like to track my water intake in my bullet journal. Tea is okay as well. Just make sure that you're keeping in mind that black tea and things like coffee, they're diuretics, so they might make it go through you faster than just plain water would do. And sometimes this actually can dehydrate you. So just be aware of that. Herbal teas are better because they are not generally diuretics unless they have those herbs in them. But so herbal teas, if you really don't like water, or even just adding like lemon or other fruit to your water so that it tastes So it has a little bit of taste if you really can't stand water. I really like water, but I know that some people don't. Juice is okay. Juice has a lot of sugar in it. It's usually not added sugar. It's natural sugar from the fruits. So it's a little bit better than things like soda. Really do try to limit your soda and other sugary beverages as well as alcoholic beverages because these things can be really dehydrating and not healthful.
So again, I have different thoughts about this. It's scientifically true that diuretics can be dehydrating. I don't think as much about this as I used to. At this point, I didn't drink coffee. I was like a soul tea drinker, and now I actually drink coffee almost every morning because it helps with getting me focused. Caffeine doesn't affect people with ADHD the same way, I feel like, as it affects other people, but everyone has different experiences. Neurotypicals might drink coffee to wake them up. It doesn't wake me up, caffeine. It actually like calms down all of the chatter in my head. There's like so many thoughts going on all the time and different things that I want to focus on, and I'm like this all the time. But when I have coffee in particular, it quiets that. And so it helps me to focus first thing in the morning when I am the most productive. Tea also does this for me, so I'll alternate between coffee and tea a lot of the time now. I used to drink solely black tea in the morning, Earl Grey in particular. If you've been following for a long time, you know how much I love Earl Grey. This is totally off topic. I mean, we're talking about the right thing, but I don't know why I'm talking about myself so much.
Number 4 is movement. So we have to exercise our bodies, move the energy around, and we store our emotions in our bodies. And movement is one way to get that energy flowing again. Any kind of exercise that brings you joy. It doesn't have to be strenuous or hard on the body. It could be things like yoga or hiking or tai chi, dancing, all of these sort of active meditation types of exercise. But if you really enjoy lifting weights or running or things like that as well, that's another form of exercise that can get the energy moving around in your body so it doesn't become stagnant.
Yes, movement is still important to me. This is also good for my ADHD, but it's good for your body. I like the way that I talked about it as moving the energy around. I still think of movement that way, that if I'm feeling really stuck or unfocused or just off in any way, whether that's lagging or overstimulated, movement helps me to like rebalance the energy so that it's flowing in a more helpful way. And yeah, all of those different ideas of different ways to move your body, whatever your abilities are, is a good idea for self-care.
Number 6 is to set boundaries. Boundaries are really important because whether you're giving away your time or your energy or your money, just make sure that you have what you need to. If you give away too much, if you overgive, you might end up scrambling because you now don't have enough time. You may end up exhausted because you used up all your energy, or you may even end up broke because you gave away all your money and your resources. And definitely give when you have the ability. But if you get into these states of scrambling or exhaustion or not having any more resources to give, you won't be able to the next time you want to help because you've weakened yourself. And so setting boundaries is how you give with one hand and replenish your energies and your resources with the other. So it's okay to say no sometimes. If you've given to someone in the past and it's become sort of a habit, it's okay to say no sometimes if you don't have the resources in that moment or you don't have the energy or the time. It's okay to say no and to set that boundary. You don't even have to give a reason if you don't want to. And if someone is taking advantage of your kindness, then it's probably time to start saying no to them, because even if it's just this week, and you need to take a break from giving to someone, but definitely set those boundaries and stick to them.
We've already talked about boundaries. No is a full sentence. We talked about that in the video where we talked about walking your talk. We talked about boundaries in the skepticism video as well, to figure out where your line of sanity is and putting a boundary there and not letting anyone else try to pull you across to whatever their line of sanity is. And then in this, I was talking about replenishing your energy. So that's kind of the analogy of the cup again, that you have to fill up your cup, and your cup has to be full before you can really give fully to other people. So having that boundary of like, sorry, I can't until my cup is full.
Number 7 is to be selective with your time and energy. So this is kind of goes along with the setting your boundaries, but this is how you decide what you are putting your energy into, and it helps you to live more aligned with your true values. So be realistic with what you want to do. Obviously, there are certain things that you have to do to survive as a human in society, but just make sure that what you're doing, all the choices that you make are for yourself and not catering to what your family or friends think you do, not catering to what society thinks you need to be doing. Live your bliss is what this one is all about.
With being selective, I think making sure that you're not doing things because of what is expected of you by someone else. You're allowing yourself to shape your beliefs and not letting other people influence you. the way that you talk is not based on what other people are expecting you to say. The way that you act and the things that you do are based on your own morals and ethics and values rather than what someone else might be expecting of you. Good morning, I'm back, and as promised, there was an outfit change in this video, so let's just get back into where we left off.
Number 8 is to have a self-care kit. So this is some sort of kit that you can easily get to, and it has all of the things that you enjoy for your self-care exercises and practices. So it could be an actual box that you keep together at all times and you just always have the ability to access, or it could be things that are spread throughout your house in various areas depending on where you use them. But include things that are emotional, so inspirational types of messages, do mental things, so affirmation and brain games. Affirmation can be used for everything. Physical things like your healthy food that you are going to start eating, and exercise equipment, whatever that is, yoga mats, hiking boots, music for dancing. And then a spiritual center, so this might be your altar or where you meditate or any of those kinds of things. And definitely include a combination of all of these things because these are all important pieces of your human life, so make sure you have a little bit of everything.
For this, I'd just add, the way that I do this is I have these in each space in my home where I do self-care activities. The way I want to talk about this now is making things really easy to take care of yourself. And I think that's what I was talking about then, but I just want to emphasize that that's what I think is important. So I have a little container in my pantry of foods that I can grab quickly. Sometimes I forget to eat because it just is a thing that I do. So if I get too focused on something else, I'll forget to eat, and then I'll be so hungry that I won't know what to make, and I'll end up eating something that isn't going to really help that situation, like usually something really sugary that's just going to make me feel bad later. So I have a little container in my pantry that's like, if you forget to eat, grab one of these. It's like bars and little packets of nuts and things that are high energy, oftentimes have like a higher fat content because that's going to help me right then, and it's going to be long-term sustainable. Anyway, so that's one idea. And then we have a home gym, and so I have a container in there that has everything that I need. All the gym clothes in the gym, so I can just go right in there and everything I need is in there. If you don't have a home gym, then having your gym bag made up and ready so you can go to the gym or whatever it is that you're doing for movement. I have like a sleep time kit where all my bedtime routine is right where I need it on my bedstand. The point is that it's, like I said before, making it really simple to take care of yourself because you don't have to go all around your house like looking for the thing that's going to help you with that.
Number 9 is to let go of what you no longer need. So this is kind of a cliche and I probably talk about it all the time, but letting go of what you don't need is how you make room for better things to come into your life. So in some cases, this might be physical objects that you don't use anymore, that are just taking up space. Maybe they represent something that isn't part of your life anymore and you need to remove it because it has an emotional space in your, or it has a space in your mind in some way. So, keep your sentimental heirlooms. Don't go on a huge purge of everything, but things that you don't use, things that don't have any value, things that make you feel low vibe. Just keep all the practical things that you wear and you look at and you use on a regular basis, and then a couple of heirlooms as well. And then some other things that you might need to release include like your behaviors and your thought patterns. So sometimes we have to actually evolve and move on from certain ways that we've acted in the past. And this is where affirmations can be really useful because affirmations are how we change our thought patterns. So coming up with affirmations that help you to let go. So I am worthy of success. I am worthy of love. I'm worthy of happiness and fulfillment. I let go of what no longer serves me or those around me. So those are just some ideas. And you can use any affirmations that you want. You don't have to use those ones, but just make sure that, remember, affirmations should be in the present tense and in the affirmative and positive. And again, when we're changing our thought patterns and our behaviors, it does take a little bit of time. It's thought that it takes 21 days before our behaviors of doing something consistently over a period of time. It takes 21 days for those things to really set in and change. So don't give up right away. If things aren't changing immediately, they probably won't change immediately. You might not feel different right away. So do give it time.
I went through a phase of wanting to create like a capsule wardrobe. I don't know if you I think that's still a thing, but there was like trend of that. But it's basically where you have it's a very strict amount of clothing and like accessories and things. And I got rid of these shoes in doing that because they didn't really go with the capsule wardrobe. There was only like one way that I could wear them, and I'm so upset that I did that. And they were these navy blue pumps They had like a strap around the front, really chunky heel. I think they were like 60s, maybe 70s style. And all of that is coming back right now. So I'm really bummed. Anyway, I guess that's one thing that I want to emphasize with this is that I think it's really important to declutter and to not hold on to things that aren't useful. But if something really brings you joy, then I don't think there's any shame in holding on to things. As I mentioned in one of the previous presentations, witches tend to be collectors. I feel like in the time since I filmed that original video till now, I've kind of embraced that collector aspect of myself more than I did then. I think I was going through a minimalism phase at the time. Not to say that there's anything against minimalism. I think that's a really noble pursuit to really cut down on how much you're consuming. A lot of what I have is just like stuff that I found that I bring into my home. So a lot of like natural things or things that I've inherited from my grandparents is really what I have a lot of. Anyway, the point is I think be really clear about why you're letting go of things and whether you're letting go of something that actually is useful to you and does bring you joy, because you don't want to lose those really special shoes that I regret so much. Obviously, I'm just thinking about those shoes a lot.
Number 10 is to take a break if you need to. There'll be another lesson sort of about this later, but it's really easy to feel pressure to be busy all the time and to be doing and doing and doing. And it's one thing to be productive, but doing things just to appear busy or to not appear lazy, to distract yourself, that's completely different. And sometimes this ends up in us sacrificing time with our families and friends. It might end up meaning that you are sacrificing your sleep. So when you don't have time for sleep, when you don't have time for your support system, you start to lose focus and you can't see clearly anymore. It's hard to understand what your purpose is. So you do need to rest. You do need to take a step back to recharge and to focus. Catch up on sleep, yes, but also just sitting still and observing your surroundings. Notice the little things and be present in the moment.
I don't really have anything to add to that. Taking breaks is really important. I think normalizing rest is important, especially in a society that is very hustle culture focused. So I think that's a really valuable aspect of self-care is resting. It's the balance of the active energy and the passive energy of doing, and resting. You know, balancing these two things, not always being in rest mode, not always be in acting mode. And then also the thing I was talking about of staying present. I think that's really important. It helps to develop your intuition when you're present and you're experiencing things with all of your senses and just really being observant about the things happening around you.
Number 11 is to surround yourself with positive, healthy people. So unhealthy, unhelpful people, they make it difficult for you yourself to be positive and healthy. So bullies, people who complain constantly, obviously people complain sometimes, but if the only thing that you hear from people is constant complaining, manipulators, these kind of people, release them. They don't need to be part of your life. True friends will ask you for help when they really need it, and they will also offer to return the favor. Maybe not right away, but it's generally pretty balanced with helping each other. And true friends want to celebrate in your achievements and in your good times too. So the people you want to surround yourself are these true friends who help when you need it, who are there for you, who only ask for help when they need it, and who want to celebrate with you. It can be impossible in some cases. We can't avoid every single unhelpful, negative person. Sometimes we just encounter them as strangers in the places we go. Sometimes they're our coworkers. They might even be part of your family. So if you can't avoid them completely, then make sure that you are limiting your time spent with them and protecting your energy when you know that you're going to be around these types of people by doing sort of shielding exercises or something like that. And then remember to lead by example, as we were talking about in the Walk Your Talk lesson. Leading by example can help others to see that they might be able to learn from you. They can live to be more aligned with love and joy as you are showing. But yeah, our diets are not just what we eat and what we drink. They are everything that we expose ourselves to. So the things that we watch, the things that we read, and who we spend our time with. Make sure that you are spending time with the people who are going to encourage you to continue these healthy habits, to always be improving yourself, people who are going to reinforce your healthy habits.
I go back and forth with this one because, like I said in the video, there's certain people that you can't really avoid, and you may not want to. I think it is important to protect your energy. I think it can be really harmful to abandon people who are going through a hard time. So I think there's a fine line in that you really have to analyze, like, what is happening. If this person really is, manipulative and coercive and all they do is take from you, then yeah, that's somebody that may not be good for you to be around, especially if it gets into situations of abuse, physical, emotional, or mental abuse. I think if they're just being negative, if they're just complaining, like I was talking about at the beginning of that clip, that's a little bit different because you can protect yourself from that more easily. You can recover from that through self-care practices. You can put up a shield to protect your energy. You can set boundaries about what you're willing to hear from them. You also don't want to be harming the people in your life who could benefit from your help. So again, I think there's a little bit of nuance involved in that, figuring out who really deserves to be let go and who might just need help, might need some support. There's a little bit of some toxic positivity in that clip. It wasn't a lot, but it was a little bit of like, if somebody's complaining too much, then let them go, because it's okay to have complaints around you. and you can still be, I don't know what I'm trying to say. I guess we'll just leave it at that.
Number 12 is to not always blame yourself, but there's a difference between taking responsibility and berating yourself for every little thing. So it's really easy to blame yourself when things go wrong, but when you're jumping through hoops and you're not feeling like you have anything to show for it, when you are offering endless support to your friends and family, and you don't feel like there are people who are there for you when you need to have support, when someone is rude to you for no reason, maybe it's your boss or your coworker or a family member or even a stranger, just know that none of this is your fault. This is part of that second agreement of not taking things personally and to not take that blame onto yourself. Don't try to bend over backward to please people who are obviously not going to be pleased by anything that you do. When this happens, just be polite, don't take it personally, and move on.
So I mentioned the second agreement, and it's because I had previously done a live stream in the group where I went over all 4 agreements. There was like a little fight that happened, and so I was like, hey friends, let's talk about this. Anyway, the second agreement, as I mentioned, is to not take things personally. Basically, it's just that, I think I said it, but I'll say it again. Everything that other people do is about them, and it's usually not about you. So it's important to kind of be aware of what is really truthful about you and what is them projecting something onto you that's really about them. So for self-care, it's important to figure out where that line is. And again, like I mentioned at the beginning, I'm going to reiterate, sometimes you do make mistakes and people might point that out to you. And so in those cases, it is important to take responsibility for those things. And that's part of self-care as well, is being aware of your failings and your mistakes and all of that. And even when you do that, to make sure that, you know, you do what you can to make amends. If you hurt somebody, or, you know, if you made a mistake, making amends for that mistake, but not holding it. That's something I really need to work on, is not berating myself about that thing. Do you have those moments where you like remember something that happened in like 3rd grade and you're like, oh my God, that was so embarrassing? And yeah. So letting go of those things, not berating yourself for all eternity about a mistake you made years ago. If you've made amends, it's okay to move on.
Number 13 is to invest in yourself. So some of us may be lucky enough to have people who have invested in us in the past or continue to. Maybe it's in the form of money or time or energy. Could be a parent or a sibling, or maybe your spouse or partner. But if you have someone who invests in you, it's easy to forget that you need to invest in yourself as well and to do some things for yourself. And if you don't have someone who invests in you already, then you already probably know the importance of investing in yourself. So whatever your situation is, just make sure you give yourself a boost, give yourself a leg up by investing in your education, buying yourself books, wearing quality footwear, sleeping on a good mattress, and taking time to do the things that you love. These are ways that you can invest in yourself and to be more independent and dependent on only yourself and not on other people.
Well, this seems like a great place to insert a word from our sponsor, Skillshare. Just kidding, I'm not sponsored. But even though I'm not sponsored, I do very much value that service. There are so many classes that you can take on there to help you to develop whatever you're interested in, and it's not super expensive. Expense is relative. It really depends on who you are and what your resources are, but in the grand scheme of things, it's way less expensive than like going to university or taking these classes like at a university. It's just a monthly fee, and you can take as many classes as you want. I think university is valuable, and I think having a degree is very important. I'm not saying that don't do that, But if you don't have access to that and you want to learn things like Skillshare are really helpful. And YouTube as well. YouTube is free. There's a ton of stuff here as well. There's a lot of BS on YouTube though. So it's hard to wade through that and figure out what is actually valuable information. But yeah, buying books. Go ahead and plug my book again, Kitchen Witch's Guide to Healing and Self-Care. You can learn all about self-care and Kitchen Witch in this book. And if you have Kindle Unlimited, it is free. So that's fun. I mean, it's not free because you pay like $9 a year for it, but you can read it for basically free, along with all the other books on Kindle Unlimited. All of the different things that I listed there, like wearing comfortable shoes, quality footwear, that's going to be long-term health, because having pain in your feet, it is amazing how much it travels through the rest of your body and affects everything else. All of those years of wearing those really flat sandals that were in for a while, the gladiator sandals, oh my gosh, it messed up my joints for probably life. I'm still working out some of that tension in my legs. So making sure you have good arch support and good support on your feet, and that your feet aren't like gripping to hold the shoes onto your feet, that they're well secured. All of that is much more healthy for your body and so that you're not in pain. Good mattress gives you a good night's sleep, which is very important for long-term health. Even just if you can't get a new mattress, getting like a mattress topper, memory foam topper, if you're into that, to improve the quality of your mattress can be helpful as well. Good sheets on your bed, making it really cozy and comfortable. That can be a good way to upgrade your sleep experience. And yeah, just doing the things that you love whenever you have the chance.
Number 14 is to take stock of your resources. So this is all about gratitude. We're bombarded with messages about needing the newest, latest thing, the newest iPhone, the newest whatever thing that we're being advertised about. And this is how we sink into that feeling of lack, because we don't have that thing yet, so we're lacking. But part of self-care is remembering yourself, reminding yourself about your blessings, and taking stock of your resources. So things that might be included in your resources are things like money, if you own your house, if you own a car, any valuable items you have, but also things like emotional support and love, so surrounding yourself with people who love you. If you are able to have food in your belly, if you have clean water, you have access to clean water. And one of the most overlooked resources, I think, is health. When we have it, we take it for granted and maybe even unaware of it. But when it starts to decline, or if you get hurt, or if you get sick, that's when it becomes painfully obvious just how important our health is. So this is one of the most overlooked resources, I think, is your health. But just take stock of all the blessings in your life. Be grateful for those things, and this will help you to get out of that feeling of lack.
I think gratitude is really important to remember. I like the reminder. At this point, I was younger, so health had a completely different meaning. I mean, I'm not that much older. I'm still very young in the grand scheme of life, but age is definitely catching up to me. So my body is not doing the same things that I was able to do during this video. I do own my house now. At that point I was living in an apartment. We do have a new car that we bought since this. I think that's a really good reminder for myself, because I was in a completely different place in life. I had gratitude for different things, and things change, and recognizing when those things change, to be grateful for those. Yeah, I think it's just important to remember the things that we do have and not focus so much on the things that we wish that we had.
Number 15 is a lifelong pursuit of learning. So learning new things is not just something that we should be doing when we're in school, when we're forced to go to school and we're forced to learn things by society. We should be continuing to learn throughout our life, continuing to evolve our worldviews and our opinions and our beliefs, because when we don't do this, it becomes stagnant and it can become outdated. Sometimes they even hold us back from our potential. So every now and then, reflect on your beliefs, see how they have evolved over time, if they have evolved over time, and if they are holding you back or even harming you, it's time to release them and learn something new, or to replace those beliefs. And if they're supporting you, find ways to reinforce these things that are encouraging you to continue to grow and evolve.
And that's what we're doing here. I mentioned that it's good to reflect on your beliefs, and here we are 5 years later reflecting on what I said back then. So I'm just modeling what I said. I'm walking my talk. It all comes together.
And learning can take all sorts of forms. It doesn't have to be going back to school or anything like that. There are many different ways to learn. You can learn by reading books, even reading fiction books. You can learn about other people and these human emotions that you might not experience. So reading is a really good way to learn, watching documentaries and some movies as well, these storytelling types of exercises, taking classes, of course. You can learn from an expert in that way. Your life experiences are a way to learn, so reflecting on things you've done in your life and learning from those experiences. Traveling is a great way to learn about other ways that people live around the world. You can take quizzes and tests to see what your knowledge is, what your level of knowledge is. Meditation is a great way to learn about other realms and other levels of existence. You can experiment. That's a great way to learn. A lot of times this ends in failures. Sometimes it ends in successes, and these are both great ways to learn. Listening to other people is an important way to learn, because you might learn something about another person's experience. Observing the world around you is a great way to learn as well. You can see, especially with like nature, you can learn a lot about the world in observing nature. So learn about cultures, learn about religions, learn about lore, learn about the people around you, the world in general, environmental issues, learn about new hobbies, your hobbies, learn new things about the hobbies you already have, read fiction, read nonfiction, whatever you do. The subjects are limitless, endless. I might argue that self-knowledge is one of the most important types of knowledge, because especially when it comes to self-care, because how can you care for yourself if you don't know what you need for yourself, if you don't know what yourself needs? So self-knowledge is really important as well, and you can delve into self-knowledge using all of those things that I talked about before.
Erica and I talk about this all the time on the Talk Witchcraft podcast, the importance of following your curiosity and allowing yourself to be willing to ask questions rather than assuming that you know things. So I think that that's really important, that if you do notice something that's different from what you thought was truth, asking the person who said that thing, what made them say that, or why it is that they believe that, and see if they have something to add to your wisdom bank, or see if they're full of because I feel like a lot of times people just assume that, especially adults, we just assume that we know everything. And I actually don't want to put myself into that. Because I don't think that I'm that way. I don't want to seem like I'm like above it, but it's one thing that I value, and I try really hard in my own life, and I observe it in other people who, because you're an adult, you assume that you know everything. I think that's the thing, is that our society kind of we have all these different stages of childhood, especially when you are in the school system, because it's like you identify with the grade you're in. So each year you have a certain milestone of what you need to know for that year. And then in college it's similar as well, if you do go to college or if you get a master's degree. But it's like after that point, there's not really milestones anymore that you need to reach. It's almost like we treat all of adulthood as like the same stage, and that you don't need to think or learn or do anything else anymore because you got it all. But that's not true. We should continue each year after that, continuing to learn more, and maybe setting milestones for ourselves based on what we're interested in and what we're curious about, and the skills we want to develop and the talents we want to have, in order to keep life interesting and not become stagnant, like I said in that video. And there's issues with public schools and private schools and charter schools and all of that. There's issues with the way that we treat education as like very standard. It would be more helpful if it was possible to have more of an individual education. It's challenging in a country like the US, where it doesn't seem like our society or the people who are elected really value education, so funding gets cut more and more, teachers get paid less and less. It's a lot harder to give individual treatment to students. Maybe that's something to do as well, is to make sure that if you value education, then to making sure that you're electing people who are also people who value education and who will put funding into public schools.
Number 16 is to treat yourself. So treats can be all forms. Sometimes they are things that we eat. Sometimes they are things that we buy for ourselves, things that are pretty to look at. They can be experiences. You might treat yourself as a way to reward yourself for good behaviors, or for accomplishing something, or for achieving a goal. So maybe you've lost the weight and you're treating yourself to a new pair of shoes, or maybe you've got a new job after a long period of unemployment, so you buy yourself a trinket to remind yourself. Maybe you finally quit that awful job that was making you feel bad about yourself, so you can go out and take a hike because you are rewarding yourself with the free time you have now. Maybe you stood up for yourself in an unfair situation, and you reward yourself with a longer meditation session so you can reflect on what you learned. Maybe you finally cleaned out your closet and now you can go on a shopping spree because you made room for new things to come into your life. Whatever it is, you can use treating yourself as a reward, but you can also use it to motivate yourself to continue toward long-term goals. At milestones, you might reward yourself along the way, or you might say, okay, I can eat this Skittle if I read this next paragraph, I used to do that when I was studying. I would put Skittles on the paragraphs in the book, and as I got to the paragraph, I got to eat the Skittle, and then I had to read the next paragraph, and then I had to eat the Skittle. So you can use it as a way to motivate yourself to continue. But there could be no reason at all if you want to treat yourself, obviously everything in moderation, but treat yourself to just celebrate who you are for no reason at all. It will probably look different for each person depending on your budget or your sense of what is a joyful activity or item, but you could buy yourself a new book, take a class, learn a new hobby. You could buy a new outfit or even a new to you outfit by going to thrift stores, new pair of shoes, get yourself a haircut or color your hair, going out to dinner, ordering dinner in, making a dinner that takes a little bit longer than you usually have time to cook. If you really enjoy cooking, you might just take that time to really make a beautiful dinner. Eating your favorite treat. Maybe you have a specific dessert that you really enjoy, but you only eat it on special occasions. A treat can include calling or texting a friend or a family member so that they can celebrate with you. That can be really fun. Or taking a trip or a weekend getaway or something like that. All sorts of different things you can do to treat yourself.
The Mumbles, am I right? It's always been Maggie Mumbles. But back then it was a lot more mumbly. I love treat yourself.
3 words for you. Treat yourself. Treat yourself 2011.
It's funny that I mentioned the Skittles thing because I remember doing that, but what I didn't mention there is that sometimes it worked. So it was motivational sometimes, but a lot of the time I realized that I could just have all the Skittles because I'm an adult and I can make whatever choice I want, and I have ADHD and I have impulse control. I would like to switch this treating yourself from as a reward for something else to just treating yourself. Especially since I know more about my neurodivergent brain now, treating myself as a reward for good behavior is not as useful as it is maybe for neurotypical people. I guess I would just like to add that caveat. So for this, if you feel like you deprive yourself frequently of things for whatever reason, I would say treat yourself more. And if you feel like you are a little overindulgent with the treats, then maybe don't think about this one as a self-care activity.
So number 17 is to give yourself some slack. I think this is a really important part of self-care, and that is self-love or self-acceptance. Other than looking after your health, your mental, your emotional, your physical, your spiritual health, self-acceptance I think is a really important part of self-care. So it means accepting all of your minor flaws, because as a human, we all have flaws. That's part of what being human is. You might judge or criticize others, but often we are a lot harder on ourselves than we are on other people. So just try to be a little bit kinder to yourself and gentler to yourself so that you are not the source of any of your negative emotions. Whether you're hard on your appearance or your mental health or your physical health or your spiritual health or any other thing that you might not like about yourself, every single inch of you tells a story of your life, and it's an important part of you. It's all something to celebrate. So as long as you're not hurting yourself or someone else, embrace every single part of yourself.
Well, that's nice. I like that. I don't have anything to add. We just have one more self-care tip now, and then a little wrap up, and then we're done.
And number 18 is to find a healthy outlet. So we all get into moods sometimes. We get into these low vibe emotions, but make sure you have some way to elevate your emotional vibration so that you don't sink further into these depression, anger, guilt, and other low vibe emotional states. So you can find someone you trust who you can talk to in a healthy way, and of course offer to listen to them whenever they need your help as well. You could snuggle with your pet, you could snuggle with your partner, you could snuggle with your kids. Writing in your journal or diary is a way to release those emotions. Just make sure that once they're in there, you either don't revisit them to get those emotions back, maybe you burn them, maybe you just don't let yourself reread, but writing things down can be really helpful. Reading your favorite book can help you to escape into another place, and that can often lift and elevate you. Meditation, prayer, these things can help you to release these low vibe emotions into the divine, taking them away from yourself and letting them go out into the universe. Listening to music can be really lifting, as long as it's upbeat music and not sad music that's making you sink even deeper. Watching your favorite movie. Exercising is proven to release endorphins that make us happy.
Exercise gives you endorphins. Endorphins make you happy. Happy people just don't shoot their husbands.
Taking a walk is another good way to do that. Visiting nature, going on a hike. Just do something that helps you to acknowledge these feelings and helps you to release these feelings in a healthy way. Do something that helps you to relax for a little bit and to come up with a solution if necessary. If it's an ongoing problem, you can start coming up for a solution to what is causing these problems or these feelings.
The only thing I would say about that, I think acknowledging and feeling emotions and figuring out a healthy way to find your way out of those emotions, I think all of that is good. The only thing that I'm a little iffy on now is the way that in the past I described emotions and the idea of low vibe and high vibe. I do think emotions are on a spectrum, but I think of them more as things that feel unpleasant and pleasant in your body. And I think all emotions can feel both. I'm still learning about emotions. At this point, I was like just starting to learn about emotions in my witchcraft practice. That's kind of like the beginning of learning about shadow work at this point. I was still recovering from love and light witchcraft and kind of toxic positivity and realizing that that's not a good way to be. Like I've talked about, I'm still kind of figuring all of that out, so I'm not really sure, but that's a little bit how things have shifted for me. I think all those ideas for helping you deal with your emotions are good. Snuggling, reading, meditating, going for a walk, all of that, great stuff.
So those are all of the self-care ideas I have for you today. I hope this inspires you to some course correction if necessary so that you can start living a more healthy, more positive life. I hope that you learn to be a little bit more gentle with yourself. I think you're probably doing a lot better than you think you are. But just to reiterate, we are all powerful beings as witches and magicians. We are energy sources in our own right. We have to remember to restore the used energy, or we can get stuck and we can get into this never-ending cycle of pouring from an empty cup, and that only harms ourselves. So just remember to find ways to restore and to refresh your energy and learn to refill that cup so that you can pour from a full cup. And regardless of the path you're on, the path you're taking, I believe that your number one priority should always be yourself and your own well-being. And that includes taking care of your physical and your spiritual self, so your spiritual and mundane selves. Because when you forget about your spiritual self, your mundane life will suffer. And when you forget about your mundane life, your spiritual life can suffer. So it's all about balance. And the worksheet that I'm going to upload after this video has the key points that I talked about today, but also a few guiding questions to set up your own self-care. So you can have, I think it's 5 things, list 5 things for each of your categories: spiritual, mental, emotional, and physical health. Listing 5 things for each of these so that next time you feel like you need to do some self-care, you'll have just a list ready to go. You can just pick something off the list. So look for that. All right, thanks for watching. I'll see you tomorrow.
So before I close the screen out, I remember filming in this room. I don't know if you can see my mouse, but you can see the shine on my face. I remember filming at this old apartment and having to close these huge heavy curtains because no matter what position the sun was in, it like reflected off everything in the courtyard outside of the window. And if there was even a crack in the curtains and the sun hit at the right angle, it would shine like right on my face. So that's why the lighting was always like weird back then. It would get really dark sometimes because the sun would go down, or it would get cloudy. And so I'd just be like sitting in the dark. I'm just remembering that because of this shot. With that worksheet that I mentioned, that actually became kind of the foundation. I did a self-care course in Mumbles Academy when I was doing Mumbles Academy. That was about all of these different areas of self-care of your life, the body, mind, and spirit, and emotions. And so that kind of became the foundation for that. And then I actually incorporated it into my new book, The Kitchen Witch's Guide to Healing and Self-Care. That's something that I thought was a really cool idea, was the way that it's broken up. So in the self-care chapter, I describe self-care for the mind and different activities you can do, for the body, for the spirit, for difficult emotions, for self-love. So that's what I was talking about with the self-love, energy and creativity, relationships, and abundance and prosperity. You get an overview of those and some ideas for activities for self-care. And then in the part 2 of the book is where all the spells and the rituals and the recipes are. Each chapter here is based on each of those things I just listed. So the chapter 5 is about self-care for your mind. And so it has a ritual that is designed, a mindful tea ritual, developing mindfulness, a tea recipe, and then there's tacos, a salad, and a soup in this particular chapter that are all using ingredients that are supposed to help your brain. And then for the body, there's a body scan activity that I mentioned before, and then there's a tea recipe oatmeal, a vegetable bowl, and chocolate mousse. The spirit, there's a kitchen cleansing ritual that I mentioned before, and then there's a tea, a salad, a soup, and then a whipped cream recipe. For the difficult emotions, there's observing your emotions, exercise or ritual, a tea, a stir fry, mac and cheese, and a peanut stew. In the self-love, there's a enchanting ritual. So this is a charging ritual for your kitchen. A tea, a burger, a salad, and a soup. So I kind of tried to do like an entree. I think there's a soup in every chapter, a tea in every chapter, and then like an entree, and then a salad type thing. So some of them I switched it up a little bit, but I tried to give a kind of a well-rounded grouping of things. So then for energy and creativity, there's the centering visualization that I mentioned before, the tea, a salad, soup, and energy bites. Then we have a boundaries visualization, which I probably should have mentioned in the boundaries section. So there's that as well. There's a tea, a hummus, fruit salad, and a chia pudding. The last chapter for abundance and prosperity, there is a unblocking your mindset, a tea, fajitas, avocado toast, and sugar cookies. Anyway, this book can give you some ideas of activities that might help with self-care for these various areas and recipes as well. So I'll just leave it there. Last plug on the book. I'm really excited about it, and I can't wait for other people to have it and to use it, to give me feedback. So thank you for listening to me talk about it for a little bit. I know this video is very long. Thank you so much for watching. If you did enjoy the video, please give this video a thumbs up. I hope you have an amazing morning, evening, afternoon, or night whenever you're watching the video, and I will see you in the next one.